Today we are going to be talking about the Chaya tree. It's also called the spinach tree and has a ton of nutritional benefits. Pretty much anything you can attribute to spinach, you can attribute to the Chaya tree as well. So in a homesteading situation or nutritional situation, I highly suggest growing it. And it's extremely easy to grow. Extremely easy. They propagate simply. You can cut off a branch, stick it in the ground, and it will grow. We've had a pretty much 100% success rate with propagating Chaya trees. I don't think I've had such easy success with anything else besides yucca, which we'll talk about in another episode, which is another very simple plant to grow. So Chaya, harvesting it is very, very simple. You just cut your leaves, throw them in a bucket. I'm going to bring them inside and rinse them out. One thing to note about Chaya, it is poisonous raw. You have to cook it. That's the main difference between your regular store-bought spinach that you can throw in a salad and anything else and eat raw. Chaya has to be cooked. So you can saute it up, throw it in anything. You can put it in a tea, a stew, whatever you like. I'm going to be sauteing it up and throwing it in an omelet, probably. Something like that. I'm not really good at omelets, so probably just scrambled eggs with Chaya. But it's a very simple tree, it's a very nutritious tree, and we will talk about some of the health benefits later inside where we have some better light. But in the meantime, I'm going to start harvesting my Chaya. Okay, so I've got my bucket of Chaya leaves. A couple other notes for the Chaya tree. You can harvest up to 60% of this tree. During the summer, it will be covered in little white blossoms that the bees go nuts for. So it's a great pollinator bait to bring them into your garden. During the winter, which we're kind of almost there here in Florida, it'll start losing all its leaves and looking a little sad. But for the other 9 months of the year, it's a fantastic privacy bush, truly. So we've got a few of these lined up along our fence line, and they're fantastic. Okay, thank you for staying with us here at Homestead for Life. We are in the kitchen with our Chaya. We are currently waiting for water to boil. Probably should have paused it until that was done, but that's okay. Before we get started processing our Chaya, I wanted to share some of the benefits of it and some details about the plant that I didn't share outside. So the first thing is a reminder that it is poisonous raw. It contains hydrocyanic acid, which is cyanide, essentially, or becomes cyanide. So you want to make sure you're very, very careful about processing it. The reliable sources I found on the internet say that you would boil it for 5 minutes or 20 minutes depending on which variety of Chaya that you have. Now if you have the ones with the hairy leaves, the hairs get irritating and it takes about 20 minutes of boiling to get the hairs to go away. Mine doesn't have the hairs, so to be safe we're going to boil it for 10 minutes even though the no hair type says 5. Some other fun facts about Chaya. It is a 12-foot shrub, or grows into a 12-foot shrub. It prefers shade, but likes the heat. It grows well in zones 8 through 11. It is fine with hot, dry conditions. It started, or at least as far as they can tell, it started in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. So it is very, very accustomed to that climate. Doesn't need a lot of attention. Ours have been 100% neglected. We might have watered them a couple times when they were just cuttings, and then we threw them in the garden, planted them along the fence line, and you saw one of them today. And they are all in about the same shape, so they've grown very well. They're probably just 2 or 3 years old. And they've done really well for us. So some nutritional facts about Chaya. It actually has more nutrients than your standard spinach. It has 5.7% protein. Regular spinach has 3.2%, so it is a huge source of protein. 1.9% crude fiber. It has calcium, potassium, iron, vitamin C, carotene. It's got a lot of really great nutrients. We're going to give you a little cheat sheet here, maybe here. Don't know. We'll see when we put the video together. Because of that nutritional value, people have used it. I'm not a doctor, but people have used it for a lot of things like blood circulation, improving blood circulation, digestion. That carotene should help with your vision. Supposedly it prevents varicose veins and hemorrhoids, lowers cholesterol, helps reduce weight, good for diabetes and kidney problems. Again, not a doctor, but when you look up different health issues and health conditions, it tells you, or you can easily find what nutrients you need to focus on, so you can kind of gauge your own decisions with that. All right, so that was a lot, right? That was a mouthful. All the amazing health benefits of Chaya, which is a very, very, very easy plant to grow. It thrives on neglect. It has been perfectly fine, grown well and healthy in my yard for years with zero attention. Right? So to process it, we're going to do this. We are going to boil it all, but then we're going to do a couple things with it. Some of it I'm going to put in the fridge so I can just throw it into the next meal. And some of it I'm going to put on this Harvest Right freeze dryer tray, and I'm going to freeze dry it. From there I can powder it and add it to anything. Okay? I suppose you could also dehydrate it as well, but because it's going to have so much water in it, the freeze dryer is probably going to do better for me. So first we're going to chop it up. Really simple. My water's starting to simmer, so it should just be a couple more minutes and we'll be ready to put it in there. So I'll put it back in my bucket. So it's ready to just pour into the pot. Okay, so now we're just going to wait for water to boil. Unless you wanted to watch it with me. Okay, so our pot is at a full rolling boil, so we're going to add our spinach and let this boil for 10 minutes. Alright. It's all in there, so we'll check it out again in 10 minutes. Our Chaya has finished cooking. It's been boiling at a rolling boil for 10 minutes. So we're going to strain it, and then we're going to put some in a Tupperware for me to cook with tomorrow, and we're going to put some on our Harvest Right tray. Very, very hot. So we're going to cross our fingers and hope that I don't pour any boiling water on my feet, because that's happened before and it sucked. And here you can probably see I've just got a strainer over a pot, and we have our chaya. Tastes like spinach. How big or small you cut it is a personal preference. You can do whatever works for you depending on how you're going to be using it. What we freeze dry is probably going to end up in the coffee grinder to be powdered, so it really doesn't matter how big it is for that. Strain it out and then spread it on my tray here, and then the tray is going to go in the freezer. We've got a deep freeze, so it gets very, very cold, so we usually just put food in it overnight to go into the freeze dryer the next day. It usually freezes pretty solid in that amount of time. I don't think that leaf got cut up. And that's about it. So to see more on freeze drying foods, that'll be another video, probably several other videos. But what the freeze dryer does, it's fantastic for long-term food storage. What it does is first it freezes your food, and then it turns on a vacuum pump and starts pulling all the air out of the vacuum chamber. Then the trays start to heat up a little bit, so it starts melting the water on the trays, and then it sucks that water out. The cool thing about it is it leaves the food pretty much the same, whereas if you throw it in the dehydrator, it'll shrivel up. This will look almost exactly the same, just a lot drier and crunchy instead of leafy. Just about everything regular food-wise does that in the freeze dryer. It'll look very, very similar instead of shriveled and dry in the dehydrator. So we are going to throw this in the freeze dryer tomorrow. We are going to cook these up or throw it in some scrambled eggs tomorrow morning. And that's it. That's chaya.